I give it a 10. It was absolutely sensational. There's no doubt about it. He completely took over. And I'm not just talking about his level of production on the basketball court. I'm talking about the way he galvanized his teammates, rallied them around him, and got them to get out of the coma that they were clearly in, and really got all up in them and let them know, we're not settling for this. We're not losing this game. He really got in their face. He demanded a level of tenacity and an elevated level of effort. They responded the way that they do because it wasn't just about his 7 for 10 shooting. It certainly wasn't just about Udonis Haslem 5 of 5 shooting, which was huge in the third quarter. LeBron initially assisted on a couple of those baskets. He was the one that assisted on Mario Chalmers' three-point shot. So it wasn't just that he was scoring the 16 points, outscoring the Pacers in the third quarter by himself, but he was helping Udonis Haslem and Mario Chalmers do it. And then on the defensive end of the floor, the Miami Heat just stepped it up to another level. They resembled piranhas. They were in attack mode. They went after the Pacers, and it was after LeBron got all up in them because the first half, they seemed like a shell of themselves. They didn't have it. Dwayne Wade just didn't have anything going for himself last night offensively. And you know what? And I'm going to say this. He didn't look, and I'm certainly not accusing him of this. I'm just talking about appearances. He didn't look hurt. He looked like almost disinterested. And I'm not, and I've never seen Dwayne Wade appear to be that passive. I was shocked by it. It's just one game. I certainly don't expect that in Game 6, but he just looked passive. And then I looked at Chris Bosh, and I spoke to him before the game, Skip, and his mentality is, I got to rebound. There's no excuse for me to have 13 rebounds over the course of the first 4 games of this series. And I think his primary responsibility was to try and keep Roy Hibbert off the boards, and he clearly was successful in that regard last night. But with all of those things being said, they just didn't seem to be themselves. And I'm talking pretty much all of them until LeBron James got all up in them. I mean, in their face, and just demanded that they wake up. So it's not just about his performance in terms of how he played in the third quarter. It was about him providing the momentum necessary in order for them to play the way that they did in the second half.
Wow. Before I answer the question, I'm stunned by your D. Wade analysis. Are you suggesting that he starts to appear to be on the downside of his career then?
No. Well, listen, there are people who say that. I'm not suggesting that because to me, the second that D. Wade gets healthy, he'll be fine. I'm just saying, you know how it's one of those nights where somebody just doesn't look as into it as you're accustomed to seeing them? That's what I saw. I didn't see the fervor that I customarily see from D. Wade. Even if you're missing shots, you're doing other things. I didn't see that fervor in him last night. I just didn't see it.
Well, of all nights not to have any sense of urgency from Dwayne Wade, that's pretty scary to me. That could lead, and we'll talk about this a little later, could lead to advantage San Antonio Spurs. I'm just saying, looking down the line, because I'm going to say this series is effectively over. Now, back to your question. Scale of 1 to 10, impressed. LeBron, big picture, I'm going to go to a 7 and only to a 7, Stephen A. And I will give you that. I agree with every point that you made. LeBron had a good game in the third quarter for most mortals. To make 7 out of 10 shots and 2 threes and score 16 points and have 4 rebounds and 4 assists, all in that one span of the third quarter. What an explosion that was. And effectively, I think it ended this series and ended any psychological hopes that the Pacers have of going home and holding serve and making it a Game 7. I think it's over. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, 2 things on LeBron's game. First of all, keeping this in perspective, I believe he owed his team last night because he did blow the end of Game 2 with those 2 turnover passes in the final minute. And he did have, by his standards, a very shaky fourth quarter that opened the door in Game 4, in which he, of course, in that quarter had 4 fouls, including his 6th foul, and prompted the man who has chronicled his career the closest, Brian Windhorst, today on ESPN.com in his column to say that fourth quarter of Game 4 was one of the worst quarters of LeBron James' playoff career. So let's keep that in perspective. He came back and made amends last night. He needed to, and we both predicted that he would. Now, number 2, I've said 1,000 times on this show, I love it when LeBron plays angry. And I got to see him play angry in the third quarter. And Windhorst points out that LeBron wore camouflage pants to the game because Lance Stevenson had gotten under his skin and infuriated with all of his trash talk and his trash antics, if you will, and that LeBron went into, as LeBron said after the game, into attack mode. But it took until the third quarter, and I'm thinking, LeBron, what are you waiting for? Come on, the game is teetering. They're down 4 at half. They're down 6 early in the third quarter. And finally, LeBron was LeBron, all capitalized in that third quarter. And I'm thinking, wow, I wish I could have seen this in the first quarter and the second quarter, and this game would have been long over.
No. Yeah, but the reality is, Skip, you're wrong. And here's why you're wrong. Because the direct question was, what did you rate his performance in the third quarter? Not, oh, you take all the other things into consideration and he owed it to them. It's just, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, we can look at a lot of things.
Yeah, but again.
So what I'm saying to you, what would you give him? What would you give him for the third quarter?
Okay, I'm putting in perspective of what took you so long, and why didn't you do this in Game 2 and Game 4? That's what I'm putting in perspective of. I give you all your points. It was a rare explosion. I'm not sure even Kobe or Kevin Durant are capable of that in that short a time. He did take the game over. Now,
So in other words,
okay. Now remember, before the series started, I told you up front, I don't have nearly as much respect for the Pacers as you do. So I'm putting that in perspective. So I can't say, wow, he did that against the 98 Chicago Bulls. No.
You still feel the same way about the Pacers now that you did heading into this series?
Yes. This should be, I told you it'd be over in 5 games, and it should have been over last night.
You haven't changed your opinion about the Pacers at all. You think that the Pacers are still so suspect that they should have been swept this series?
Yes. Not swept, but I said 5 games. I'm standing by it. Should have been over last night. Well, what happened at the end of Game 2? Were they not in position to close that deal?
What game are you watching, Skip?
I'm watching the same game you are. I just watch it on TV.
But I'm talking about the level of respect. I'm talking about the level of respect. You've got a 7'2" center. You've got a big boy in David West. They play by big boy rules. You look at a guy like Paul George. This dude is 23, Skip.
He can't guard. He can't guard LeBron James. He's 23 years old. He can't guard him, Stephen A.
Nobody can guard LeBron James.
Okay, fine.
Let me tell you something. Let me give you a perfect example. Hold on. Let me give you a perfect example. You like to bring up Jordan. Nobody could guard Jordan. But that doesn't mean you didn't have respect for Joe Dumars because of the job that he could do compared to most others. You see what I'm saying? You know, when you have somebody that great who's unguardable, it doesn't mean that you diminish everybody else. Some guys you respect because even though they're going to get annihilated too, they do a better job than most other people could do. And against most other people, they would actually perform better, but they just happen to be going up against the best. Paul George is the guy that was, you know how you feel about Carmelo Anthony. You know how we both feel about Carmelo Anthony. We raved about Paul George and the job he's capable of doing and that he has done against Melo as well as J.R. Smith. Now, LeBron is obviously on another level, and we understand that. We understand that nobody can stop him. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you look at Paul George and just summarily dismiss him. The dude is 23 years old and already plays on both ends of the floor. It's usually just offense with these young guys. This dude plays on both ends of the floor, and he's 23. He's 23.
Okay. And because he's 23, LeBron should have been doing that earlier. What he did last night in the third quarter, I wanted to see it in game 1, 2, 3, and 4 a little more than I got to see it. And this would have been over. That's my point.
In games 1, 2, 3, and 4, the team didn't fail to show up in the manner that they failed to show up in the first half last night. It's tied 2-2. You could be on the verge of being on the brink of elimination.
You could.
And you come out relatively flat, devoid of energy. He didn't have to galvanize his troops the way that he did last night.